Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2019 BMW X5, we're going to be showing you how to install the Stealth Trailer Hitch Receiver. But before we do that, why don't we check this out and make sure that this is the right hitch for you. When it comes to the X5, really good looking SUVs, especially even more so like the one we have here today, the M Series. Very sporty, have aggressive body lines, and if you can get away with not being able to see a trailer hitch down here, that's definitely the way to go, at least in my opinion, right? And that's exactly where the Stealth Hitch is going to come into play. So believe it or not, the rest of the hitch is already installed. So it's behind her bumper and it looks completely factory. But whenever you're ready to use it, you can take your receiver tube, and this essentially is going to lock into place up inside, connecting to the rest of the hitch, and give you that attachment point where you can use different types of accessories. Whenever you are ready to do that, it's not really that big of a deal. You know, you're gonna have to reach down and kind of plug this in, but it's pretty easy. And honestly, to me, that small sacrifice is well worth having a super clean appearance. So all you're gonna have to do underneath, there's a plug you can pull out. And a handle you kind of turn, and that's it, right? It clicks up into place and you're done. There's a lock on it too, so if you're gonna leave that in, you push a button in and it locks it. You give some keys, you can undo it whenever you're ready to remove this. And essentially it's just the exact opposite. Whenever you're ready to remove it, you'll turn the lever, this will drop down, and then obviously you just pop your plug back into place. Just kind of a better look at what I was talking about. So there's the plug that we remove. So you'll pop that out. And then there's your handle. So when you go to put that receiver tube in, you just kind of put some pressure on it, turn that a little bit, it'll lock into place. And when you're done using it, you'll turn that lever again and it'll drop down. And obviously just put the plug back in. So what's pretty cool about this setup is you don't need any tools or anything to do that. It's just all by hand. And some of the other hitches that are kind of similar to this, a lot of them will require you to get a tool out and pull the bolt out and everything else. So it's pretty convenient. You don't need to mess with that stuff. You just grab your hitch, pop it in, and you're ready to go. So while we're down here, I figured I'd just take a closer look at how this actually works. So obviously the plug is out, and push that up. Sometimes, I think with this being brand new, sometimes you have to mess with that handle to put it in place, but that time it just snapped in, and that's it. And then obviously turn that knob, it locks open, this drops down, and you can put this away in storage. With the receiver tube in, one thing I do like about it is the fact that it comes out a little ways past the bumper, which is perfect for those folding type accessories. You know, you're gonna have the space you need to be able to fold them upright and not have to worry about them hitting the back of your BMW. And honestly, that kind of works out perfect with this particular setup, because with this receiver tube opening, that's all you can use it for, is accessories, bike racks, cargo carriers, things of that nature. So this particular tube isn't set up for towing. You can't put your typical ball mount in there and your pin and clip and hook up your trailer to it. With that said though, it doesn't mean that the whole hitch, you know, as an assembly isn't rated to tow. It is. You're just gonna have to get, there's a special ball mount. It looks a little bit different. That has your trailer ball on it, and that's what snaps in. And with that one, you know, that's rated to hook up the trailers and pull around and everything. And then they also offer kits essentially. So if you're someone that's gonna plan on using accessories, plan on pulling a trailer around and everything else, you can get the whole package, which they give you this, they give you the special ball mount, and even wiring, trailer wiring that you can hook up. That way your trailer's lights will work and everything else. So regardless on what you're trying to accomplish, there's gonna be a package or something available for you to allow you to help do that. Something that I do wanna address that we get asked about quite often is, are you still going to be able to retain your hands-free Liftgate Assist feature even with the hitch in place? And the answer is yes. Even if you have the receiver tube installed, or obviously if it's not installed, the receiver tube, it's still going to work, right? Essentially, you're just going to have to kick your foot to either side of that receiver tube, and everything's going to open up just like it should. Something that I do want to address, so this hitch is going to work with all the models of X5, whether you have an M series like we have here today, or just the standard one. Everything's going to bolt up and work the way it should. And I want to mention that our receiver tube, this one it comes with, does have a 2" by 2" opening. Really common size, a lot of different stuff will work with it. If you happen to have an accessory already that uses the 1¼ by 1¼ the smaller one, pretty cool is you can buy these receiver tubes separately in that size, so that's always an option for you. This one is going to use that standard 5/8 pin and clip. Doesn't come with the hitch, but if you need one, not really a big deal. You can grab it here at eTrailer. And matter of fact, a lot of times accessories you get will come with one anyway, so not really the end of the world. And with this setup, it is going to have a 600-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating. Pretty high number, and that's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. And with it being 600 pounds, you're really going to have endless opportunities on what type of accessories you can use. You know, 4 or 5 bike racks, or pretty much any size cargo carrier. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you can use these to help figure out what type of accessories to get. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 14 inches. So you should be just fine whether your accessory has a straight shank or one that even has a rise in it. From the center of the hitch pinhole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 1 inch. And so what I mean by that is the pinhole is actually going to be 1 inch past the bumper. So like we talked about, you can use this to help figure out that if any folding type of accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without contacting the bumper. Other than that though, at the end of the day, you know, if I had a vehicle like this is probably a hitch that I would really consider. Just the fact that it looks so good, right? When you're not using it, you're not going to see it, and when you are ready to use it, it's not a big deal. You just pop it in there. Especially considering too, you don't have to trim your bumper or anything like that. There's a small panel underneath that has kind of a pop-out piece that you'll pop out and cut just a little bit around it, but it's underneath the vehicle. You're never going to see it, right? Just a small piece of plastic. So not really a huge deal, honestly. Which that kind of does lead me to the installation side of things. I'm not going to lie, it's time consuming. A lot of fasteners holding all this stuff in. The passenger side, on the inside of the vehicle, you will have to take one of the panels out just to get access to a bolt or two. But you know, it's one of the things you do at one time, you stay patient, you do it right, and you'll be really happy with yourself and the outcome once it all goes back together. So that'd be my advice. Just stay patient, stay focused, and you know, you'll be able to get it done. But if you'd like to see how that is done, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and put the hitch on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our BMW, and we're going to be working inside first. So we need to open up our hatch and our tailgate deal here. And if you look on the sides, we're going to have a couple of panels that we need to take off. So here's the panel that we need to take off, and makes it a little easier if you open up your rear hatch, your rear floor covering. This will just pop off. The other side of the vehicle has a panel just like this, minus this handle here, but you can just reach in and grab it, pop it off with your hand. So I want to mention from this point on, anything we do to one side of our vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. So now inside of the car, you know, from the back, if you look your way forward up to where your back seats meet this panel, you fold your seats down, you're going to have a plastic tab there. You can pop that up, and then underneath it that will expose, I think this is a T40 Torx bit. So you need to go ahead and pull that out. This doesn't want to come out, not really a big deal. As long as it's completely loose, whenever we take this covering off, it'll just come out with it, and not really a big deal. So now to get this piece off, there's a gas strut that's holding it on. So we can undo one end of it. Take a flathead screwdriver, kind of pry behind that clip. You're able to pull this off. That should release this floor panel. With that gas shock loose, we can carefully lift this out of the vehicle and get it out of the way. Now we're able to remove this plastic piece that runs along through here. There's going to be 7 push pin type fasteners that kind of just run along the edge of it. And so to get these out, you can take a flathead screwdriver, kind of pry underneath the head and work the whole fastener out like that. So we'll just work our way around until we get all of them out, and then this should lift up and we'll be able to remove it. Let's give our last one here in the corner. Yep, this thing just comes right off. Now we can remove this rear threshold piece, and you're gonna have 2 T20 Torx bit screws on each side. So grab our bit, pull them out. I already took the ones on the other side off. So we should be able to kind of grab this and work it up. You may have to kind of bend this piece. Actually, it comes off with it. So we'll slide this assembly off and get it out of the way. On the passenger side, we're gonna have this piece of plastic here that's covering up our latch mechanism. And we need to get that removed. You should be able to take a plastic trim tool and just kind of carefully pry behind it, and we can get it popped off. Now if we move just up from that plastic cover we took off, inside of here, there's going to be a small cover. You can take a pick or something similar to get in there and pry it and pop it off. And that will expose a T25 Torx bit screw. We'll go ahead and get this removed as well. On the panel here, just behind where the back of our rear seats would be, there's gonna be a plastic cap. You can just pry that off. And then inside of there, there's gonna be a 10mm head bolt. We'll go ahead and get that pulled out as well. Be really careful there, you don't wanna drop it, but that's what it looks like. Back up here, if we look, this piece of the seat, I guess you could call it, you're gonna grab it and pull it forward. So actually pop out almost completely, but we'll just kind of lean it like this. With that pillar out of the way, that exposes one push pin type fastener here. And just like the others, you can pry on it with your screwdriver. And get it removed. So along the bottom edge of our panel, we're gonna have 2 more plastic fasteners. Take them out the same way we've been doing the other ones. And that one's located right here, kind of jam in this corner a little bit. Now we're just about ready to get our whole panel off, but there's these little pieces here that might be in the way, so I'll just pop them off and move them. And then to grab the panel here, we're able to kind of dislodge it and begin to work it free. So it's pretty much free, but inside of it there's going to be a wire connected, and if we disconnect it, we'll be able to get this whole thing right out of the way. Here's one of the wiring connectors. There's a red tab that you pull out on. Then you can push down in the middle, disconnect it, and then over to the side a little bit more, this light, interior light, is kind of hanging us up too. So if you come in from the back, just kind of push that in. It essentially just pops out. We're able to get that removed, and then we'll just kind of set this panel down to the side like this. So with this panel dropped down, if you look at our fuse block, we'll see a bolt coming off the plastic on the fuse block. If you look just in front of that, and there will be a 10mm head nut, and we need to remove that. So we'll grab our socket and very carefully get it pulled off. With this car especially, it may help if you have a magnet like this. That way you can try to prevent the stuff from falling, but I got lucky there and ended up falling straight down. But that's one thing you can do to help prevent hardware from dropping down into the depths and never finding it again. So just be careful whenever you're taking this one off. Now what we can do is, on both sides of our car, get the tail lights removed. So there's a plastic cover, and you can just kind of pry this off. And that's what was holding it on there, just these guys there. But I will get this out of the way. And then that'll expose two torque spit screws. And so these have a T30 size head there. Fortunately, not a ton of room to work in here, so I'll just do these by hand instead of trying to piece a bunch of tools together. But anywho, with that said, eventually I'll get these bolts completely out. We should be able to pull out on the tail light and disconnect it. So I'll get them bolts out of the way. Carefully kind of work our tail light out. And to unplug it, I have a red tab, pull back on that, push down on the center, it'll release, and we can set this to the side. Now on the side of our vehicle, we have this plastic wheel well trim. We need to pop that off up till about here maybe, to get to a fastener behind it. When I was here, I did apply some painter's tape all around the edges that we're going to be working with. That way we don't accidentally scratch anything or cause any damage. But with that said, what I like to do with this one, you can start to pop it out down here. Usually, sometimes you get lucky, it'll actually start to come out, which ours is. But if anything, this just helps kind of loosen it up, you know, get some of that dirt and trash falling out of there and makes it a little bit easier to get popped out. The chances are pretty good. You're gonna need to take a trim tool like this and start to work it out. And usually once you get it started, it starts to come out pretty easy actually. So up until about here is good, and right here in this area there's going to be an 8mm head screw that we can remove. Here's that screw, and when you're moving this wheel well trim, don't get too crazy with it. You don't want to you know, put a crease in it or anything, so just be deliberate and pay attention. But we'll go ahead and get this screw removed. On the back of our car, we're going to have these reflectors, and again, put some tape around it where we're going to be working. We need to pop these out. A lot of times, again, if you start to just kind of shake it, it'll actually pop out. Again, at the very worst, it'll just loosen it up, and then you can take a trim tool and pry in on it, but that's all it is. So we'll go ahead and get this out of the way. With the reflector out of the way, if you look inside the pocket, there's an 8mm head screw. So we'll go ahead, grab a socket and extension, and pull that on out. Underneath the back of our BMW, we're going to have a ton of screws, all 8mm head screws that just run everywhere, really, and we need to pull them all out. So I'm just going to take my socket and work my way around all of them. Whenever I was taking all them screws out, I actually thought the centerpiece was going to come down, and it actually will. I missed a screw there. So when you're going through and you end up getting all them off, this will pop down, and you can just set it to the side out of the way. These pieces on the side will come down too if you pull down on them, and simply just work it off and get them out of the way too. So at this point, we're ready to take the fascia off, but big surprise, we missed another screw. So right there in this area, there's an 8mm head screw that we'll need to take out because this is actually holding part of the fascia on. So get that removed from each side of our vehicle. So hopefully we got all the screws out. I think we do. And with that being the case, we can get the fascia off. So you want to have an extra set of hands, a friend helping you on the other side. But we're just going to start at the corner and just start to carefully work our way up and around. Once you get to these taillight pockets, you may have to come back with a trim tool or something to try to release the clips there. And just be careful, take your time when you're doing this, no rush. You don't want to get carried away and break a clip and then it not go back together right. So just moving our way along here. Right there is really tight. Didn't know that was gonna happen, so you can kind of expect that. And once we get towards the center here, there should be some clips that we can remove. They say to use an Allen key. I'm not real sure what tabs to push down on. It almost looks like these. Yeah, while we're pushing down on that, you can pull back. It looks like those were released. So this will come off and we may have some wiring. Looks like we do over here on the passenger side. And to disconnect it, usually there's a tab you can push down on. Disconnect it. Looks like we'll need to, looks like there's side tabs almost. Yeah, you'll push on the side. While you're doing that, I'll pull back. But with this release, we can go ahead and set it off to the side so we're safe. With the fascia finally out of the way, now we can work on some of our other stuff over here on the passenger side. You're gonna have this clip holding that wiring on to the bumper beam, so you can go ahead and pop that on off. And then on each side of our car, we're gonna have an exhaust hanger bracket. We need to remove the nut. So that's a 13mm socket that we'll use to do that. For look on each side of our vehicle, on top of the bumper beam, there's going to be these panels. We can get them removed. Going to be held in place with 2 push-pin type fasteners. So at this point, you probably already know how to get these guys out. So that's what we'll do. Get them removed. And then you may have to, you see these little openings in there, you may have to kind of take your screwdriver and work at them. So get that released and set it to the side. On the bottom of our bumper beam, we're gonna have this kick wand sensor and this wiring connector in the middle. We'll disconnect it, just like the others. Push down on it, center, pull it out. And I removed the other 4 plastic fasteners already, but it'll be this style. Get this last one out, and we can set this to the side. Now what we're able to do is get our bumper beam off. On each side of it, we're gonna have 4 18mm nuts. You wanna hold on to these. I think we're gonna have to reuse them. Get them off. I already got the other side removed, so this should be the last one. Should be. Find out here. We'll carefully pull this off and get it removed. And we're at the point now where we can get the hitch on. So what we're gonna do is take it, and it's gonna slide over studs there. And the bottom's gonna get some brackets here in a moment. So what we'll do is just take the factory nuts and get them started on the top for now. That way the hitch will support itself while we work on everything else. Here's the brackets that we need to put on the bottom. So these are just gonna slip over like that. And the point is to get our exhaust bolted back up. So that'll secure that. So what I'm gonna do is put that on, get the nut started again, and if I can manage to get this one on here yet. I'm going to take the other included hardware. So you got a bolt, flat washer, put that up through here, and then a flange nut. I'll just get this started too while I'm at it. That way everything's somewhat in position. We can kind of center that up and come back with our socket and snug all the hardware down. Now that we have the hardware snug, we need to make sure to come back with the torque wrench and torque down the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can always get one here at eTrailer, or a lot of times you go to your local auto parts store, they'll have one there available to rent, usually for free. So what I went ahead and done, make sure you tighten down these bolts if you haven't already. But then I took these pieces here, popped them back in and re-secured them opposite way that we removed it. And then if you work towards the center of our hitch, we have this block assembly. This is going to feed up into place and we can bolt it in. When you go to put this block in, the holes in it are going to line up with the holes in the hitch, and you want this handle to be on the passenger side of our vehicle. And so we'll line this up, take the big bolts and push them through. Then we go to the other end of the bolt and get the rest of the hardware on. Here's where our bolts come through, and I want to mention, if you happen to have the hitch that is a tow package type one, I believe there's some safety chains that you put on here as well when you're doing this step. So just wanted to mention it. We don't have that, so obviously not going to worry about it. We're going to take our nylon lock nuts, get them started. Then we come back with a 15/16 size socket and wrench. Snug these down. And once we have them snug, we need to make sure to come back with a torque wrench and torque them down to the amount specified in our instructions. Once you're at this point, if you happen to get the hitch that has the wiring included, you would focus on that, follow the instructions to get it installed. Or we also have these vehicles we've done in the past and actually done the wiring, so you can always check out one of those how-to installs as well. But in our case today, we're not doing the wiring, so we're going to skip past that. Where we're at now is this kick sensor. We can reinstall that. That's what this piece of metal is for here, with the few holes in it. So obviously we're only going to be using 3 fasteners to resecure it. We'll line them back up and get them pushed in. And then obviously don't forget to plug it back in. Now we can grab this center panel that we removed earlier. This is the one that was stuck up there that I forgot that screw in. Kind of has a pre-cut out wave shape in it almost, and we're going to trim out a little bit more according to the instructions. So I marked that out, and I'll go around and just kind of zip those connectors off and then come back and cut that out there. So I'm using a Dremel tool to do this. You could probably use a pair of snips or something, but this is just going to speed things up a little bit. Again, with an extra set of hands, now we can grab our fascia, get it reinstalled. Don't forget to plug that connector in over here. I already have done that. And we're just gonna kind of get it going. And you wanna make sure that our tabs over here are gonna line up. And kind of get them somewhat going. And once they look really close, then we should be able to just kind of slowly but surely work everything back into its position here. This right here is why it's important to use tape, because sometimes you can get just a little jammed up there and don't want to scratch anything or anything along those lines. Once your fascia is on, you're simply just going to reinstall everything else the opposite way that you removed it. Honestly, really no tricks or tips involved with that one. Everything goes back together essentially the exact same way. So once everything's buttoned up, if you're not going to be using the hitch right away, obviously you can leave the receiver tube disconnected. If you are ready to use it, or you just want to leave it in there, you pull your cap out here and lock this into place. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Stealth Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2019 BMW X5.